Ben Franklin very, very much. He and I go to the same barber shop. Ben Franklin, of course, was the grandfather, so to speak, of the founding fathers. He was just about the oldest and perhaps one of the wisest as well. Growing up as a boy in Boston, Ben Franklin probably didn't know any Jews. There was no established Jewish community in Boston until after the American Revolution. But when Ben Franklin, as a young man, as a teenager, moved to Philadelphia, he certainly must have known Jews in Philadelphia. He may have known the famous Gratz brothers, Bernard and Michael Gratz, who were involved in shipping and trading with the Atlantic, trading with the Caribbean and with Europe. And they were also Indian traders trading with the Native Americans, with the pioneers on the frontier. He may have known the Bush family, who were involved in the struggle for independence and signed the non-importation agreements, protesting against British policies in America, such as the Stamp Act. He may have known Chaim Solomon, who was, we'll speak about him a little bit later, but Chaim Solomon was the gentleman who was involved with selling bonds to support the new republic. So that Ben Franklin did know Jews. But I'm sorry to tell you that all his life, Benjamin Franklin engaged in what you might call anti-Semitic discourse and anti-Semitic tropes. He did not have a high opinion of Jews. He thought Jews were shady businessmen, and he especially condemned Jewish bankers, the ones that he had known of from Europe. And Benjamin Franklin, for example, when he lived in London, he belonged to the Royal Society. When the clerk of the Royal Society was caught embezzling funds, Ben Franklin was quick to point out that he was of the Jewish faith. And so Ben Franklin did not have a high opinion of Jews. And this held for the Jewish religion as well. When the first constitution for the state of Pennsylvania was written, it contained a statement that in order to hold office in Pennsylvania, you had to believe in the divinity of the Old and New Testaments, and you had to be a member of Christian denomination. Ben Franklin opposed this, not because he cared about Jewish rights at the time, but rather because he didn't believe that the Old Testament was divine. And so he had this animus not only against Jewish people, but against the Jewish faith, one might say, as well. But that didn't stop Ben Franklin from believing in diversity and respecting his fellow man, even if they were Jews. Let me say that during the American Revolution, half the Jews in the United States flocked to the city of Philadelphia. As cities such as Newport, Rhode Island, and New York City were occupied by the British, the Jews left those places and found themselves going to Philadelphia. So that probably 1,000 Jews, half the Jews in America at the time, lived in Philadelphia. They had a small congregation called Mikveh Israel, and they were able to build a building on Cherry Street, which was called Cherry Alley in the old part of Philadelphia. But after the revolution, those Jewish people went home. And so they were in danger of losing their synagogue building. They couldn't afford to keep it up. And so the elders of the synagogue decided to put out an appeal to the general community. In other words, to ask their Christian neighbors to help support the synagogue. And the very first person to sign the ledger making a donation to the synagogue was none other than Benjamin Franklin, who gave what would be the equivalent of several $100s in today's money. So he may not have had a high opinion of the Jewish religion, but he believed in diversity. He believed in plurality, religious pluralism, and he was willing to help his fellow man. He was willing to help the Jewish community of Philadelphia. So Ben Franklin is an example of kind of a mixed bag, against the Jewish religion on a certain level, but also standing up for the Jewish people and supporting the synagogue. And incidentally, if you go online, you can find something called the prophecy, or sometimes called the forgery of Franklin. This is a document that purports to be a speech that Benjamin Franklin gave to the Constitutional Convention, as recorded by Charles Pinckney, a delegate from South Carolina. And Ben Franklin is reported to have said that the new nation should exclude Jews because within 200 years, Jews would take over America. This document, which you can find online through the internet, is a total forgery. It was created by the American Nazi Party in the 1930s. But thanks to the internet, it lives on forever.